The Neuroscience Theme is focused on trying to find new treatments for neurological and related disorders. This is really important. 1 in 6 of us in the UK have a neurological disorder. And you might think that stroke and dementia are the most common, but actually they account for less than 15% of neurological conditions. The challenge of finding treatments arises for 2 reasons. 1, it's very difficult to get at the brain. We can't take biopsies of tissue because that would be damaging. Having said that, there have been major technological advances that we've been involved in developing here at Cambridge to allow us to study the brain in living people and understand when it's going wrong and to measure how it's going wrong and to see whether we can improve that by trying new treatments. The second problem is that neurological diseases are often chronic. They go on for many, many years, and so studying them requires time, and we have to have sensitive ways of measuring changes over small periods of time in order to see whether new treatments have impact. So we're working on a variety of different studies. In the rare disease space, we're particularly interested in understanding the disorders of metabolism, called mitochondrial disorders, and we have a number of experimental medicine and clinical trials planned throughout this period of BRC funding to see whether we can improve the clinical course of patients with these disorders. An example of that is a compound called nicotinamide riboside, which is a B vitamin which, if given in high levels, is thought to improve the function of mitochondria and produce energy inside the nerve cells inside the brain. We're also looking to test novel advanced therapies, including gene therapy, to see whether this can improve the function of nerve cells, particularly at the back of the eye, causing blinding condition called Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. Other treatment approaches have really developed out of our preclinical work in our laboratories here in Cambridge, particularly in the context of multiple sclerosis. Work that we've done in our laboratories has identified 2 new treatments, clemastine and also metformin, which may well improve the clinical course in multiple sclerosis, and we have scheduled an experimental medicine and early phase clinical trial to see whether these new treatments actually have impact on the disease. Over the next 5 years, we really want to deliver impact for patients, building on the foundations of previous 5-year funding periods of the NIHR Cambridge Biomedical Research Centre. To give you some examples, we want to improve outcomes following traumatic brain injury, which affects 50 million people worldwide, and really there are very few treatments available for this. However, the experimental medicine platform that we've set up here in Cambridge allows us in real time to understand what's going on in the brain of people after they've had a head injury, and in real time to try out new treatments that should improve outcomes.
Traumatic brain injury, as it says, is trauma, and by trauma we don't mean stress or distress, we mean trauma as in impact. So it's impact to the head, to the scalp, the skull, but of course the most important part of the head is the brain. If you bruise any part of the body, it swells. If it's the knee, the elbow, it swells and it settles down. The problem with the brain is that when it's injured, it swells, and it's swelling in a tight box, the skull. It's got nowhere to go, so the consequence of that is that the pressure goes up, and if the pressure in the head goes up, then blood can't get there. So the treatment of traumatic brain injury is to try and control brain swelling and maintain good blood supply, oxygen and glucose delivery. And that's what our research is about. It's about how we can maintain blood, oxygen and glucose to the brain. NIHR Cambridge BRC has been absolutely fundamental in underpinning our research portfolio in traumatic brain injury. I think what's been amazing about it is that it supported our research in science, basic science, in terms of laboratory science, but translational science, and taking that through to clinical trials. And what's important and what we're now able to show is impact in actually improving treatment and outcome for patients following these devastating injuries.